Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that can be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. The first question for today comes from Battlefield 3 Skater, and it is, what do you think about the Recon class having C4? Since the Recon class is more of a defensive class, why would you need C4 if you're going to be scouting and sniping down enemies' units on a hill or something and not in the action getting shot at multiple times? I see no point in having it unless you are one of those players who use the SMG/shotguns to kill. You already kind of answered your question in the question itself, and that is that you can play as the Recon in multiple different ways. If you want to snipe from long range, there are the bolt-action rifles, but also if you want to play more aggressively as a Recon, you can use the carbines, the shotguns, you have the DMRs, there's all these different options, and it's not just suited to one type of playstyle. And there's even a perk setup or a field upgrade line called Spec Ops that gives you more C4s and allows you to play more of the stealthy role to get behind enemy lines and kind of sabotage enemy units. And so while, yeah, the Recon or one Recon that wants to use bolt-action rifles probably won't get a whole lot of use out of C4, there's a lot of other different roles and playstyles that can really take advantage of it. And so I think right now a lot of people are just way too bogged down with the idea that Recons only use bolt-action rifles, and they're that pesky class that only sits 1,000 meters away from the objectives trying to snipe people. Like, that's just not the case. And what DICE has been trying to do with Battlefield 4 is that if you want to play a certain class in a certain way, they've given you the options to do so. You may not be the strongest or the best at it, but they're at least giving you the tools to allow you to kind of suit it to your type of individual playstyle, and I really like that about it. And so if you see a Recon, they're not always going to have a bolt-action rifle, and hopefully a lot more people are discovering that if you play as the Spec Ops role, I've ran around with it a lot, it's an extremely powerful combinations. Like the carbines are awesome in this game, and coupling that with some motion sensors and C4, it's a pretty deadly combo. And so in reality, C4 is perfect and made for the Recon class. Like, Recon doesn't mean sniper. The Recon is short for reconnaissance, which means gathering information and gathering intel for your team. And usually, in my mind, what that means is going behind enemy lines, spotting for your team, gathering information, and then, if you want to take it a step further, blowing everything up with C4. So personally, I think C4 should stay. I don't think it's going to be moving at all, and I like what DICE has done. The next question comes from Dr. Rodders, and it is, with the increased choice of grenades available, what grenades do you use and why do you choose that? My favorite grenade right now would definitely have to go to the Impact. And I know that doesn't hit as hard as the frags, and you can't toss them as far as the minis, but just for the sheer fact that they explode on impact, hence the name, it's just an awesome little explosive device. Like, when you're able to catch enemies by surprise, which happens very often because they can't respond, or at least when they see the indicator, it just doesn't give enough time for them to run away, you can get some pretty easy kills. And one of my favorite uses of it is that if I see a large clump of enemies just kind of, camping in a corner, but they don't see them coming, I'll toss both of these, at them, and if I don't finish them all off with just the grenades themselves, I can quickly switch on over back to my primary and finish them that way. Like, it's just a very fun little grenade. It catches people by surprise, and I think that's why the Battlefield community has kind of spoken, and that's why you see a lot of people using it right now. My second favorite grenade would probably have to go to the Incendiary. I don't think it's as powerful or as useful as the Impact, and you can't use it in as many situations, but when you're on a map like Operation Locker, or you want to use it as zone control, it is just flat out amazing. You guys know that on maps like Operation Locker, things can really get bogged down or locked down, and no one's able to kind of push through those long corridors. If you toss down an Incendiary grenade, it disperses people. They want to run away. They don't want to sit in it because, of course, if they do, they're going to die. And so that kind of gives you and your team, if you push up at the right moment, to take advantage of that kind of chaos on the enemy team and push them and hopefully take everyone out. And so if used correctly, the Incendiary, while it may not give you a lot of kills like the Impact grenade, it's also an awesome little explosive device. The next question comes from Ja, and it is, I was wondering if you would agree with me that the Call of Duty Ghost sniper rifle scope design is pretty cool. I really don't like the way that you see through the scopes in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Ghost versions looks more realistic, and you can actually see what's going on around you. It's just a little bit blurred out. Yeah, I actually do agree with you that the scopes in Call of Duty Ghost do look pretty cool, having that ratio of 1-to-1 around the fringe of it, but also having the zoom-in factor is awesome, and as you said, it is more realistic. But the thing about that is because Battlefield 4 is just so graphically intense, and there's so many things going on around you, and the graphical fidelity of the game is just so much higher than the Call of Duty franchise right now, and I know some other games have this type of feature, that if DICE did try to implement a system like this, you would lag a lot. And I think they tried doing something similar, or tried to have this work with the Battlefield 3 beta. I want to say that's the case, but I could be wrong, where they did attempt this, but every single time you zoomed in, because your computer or your console is now having to render two different images, like it's basically doing twice the amount of work that you normally would, it lagged the system. And so while it may work for Call of Duty, which is great, I mean that is an awesome feature of it, and I wish that was in Battlefield, unless DICE can somehow figure out a workaround, which I don't think is really possible just because of the limitations of how the system works, we're probably not going to see that in Battlefield 4 or really in any future Battlefield title unless they really want to reduce the graphics, and that's probably not what people are looking for. The next question comes from Sunny, and it is, with next generation consoles arriving, it means that PlayStation and Xbox fans will now finally get to experience Battlefield in all of its 64-player glory, which is something that many of us won't be used to. Is there one single piece of advice that you can give to us with all of your experience to help console players make the transition into larger servers? Oh man, this is a good question. Like, there are a lot of different things that you can kind of do to get acclimated to larger servers, but I think my main advice is to learn the layout of the maps, and more importantly, learning where all of the objectives are. And I'm assuming you're gonna be playing a lot of Conquest. Like, Conquest is the bread and butter of the Battlefield series. And so if you're playing on these very large maps, it can be kind of intimidating to know where the action is, but once you at least know the basic layout and you know where all of the objectives are, or the capture points are, you'll start to understand where they're going to be coming from, where they're going to be spawning, and that will give you a better sense of the flow and where you should start to be positioning yourself. One of the best things that you can learn in really any first-person shooter, and more importantly in Battlefield, is situational awareness. And this is only one component of it, but when you know where people are heading and where the enemy is going to be spawning and where they're probably going to be heading next, you can then take advantage of that information and then use it to your advantage. You can start to flank them, you can go for some nice extended long firefights because you know where they're going to be coming from. And I realize that does sound very basic because, it is basic. But once you do start to understand the layout of the maps and you can start to know where the enemy is going to be coming from, those large servers and just having more people on the map itself is no longer daunting. You don't feel overwhelmed as much anymore, and you're going to have a much more enjoyable experience, and honestly, the true Battlefield experience. The next question comes from the Gummy Cave, and it is, you are probably already aware of this, but in a recent video, the commentator mentioned that if you start to shoot from the hip and then aim down sight, you will still be with the hipfire spread. Do you think that they should change this so that if you were starting to shoot from the hip and then aim down sight, it should change the accuracy so that's on par with the aim down sight accuracy? Yeah, I did see this video, and the results were pretty surprising. I was kind of baffled by them. But honestly, I don't think that this should really affect you all that often. Like, if you are aiming, or if you're, hip firing people down, you're using like an LMG, and then you do aim down sight, a quick little tap fire is going to correct that. Like, if you just kind of don't hold down the trigger and you just quickly tap fire for just a second and then hold down the trigger, you're going to have that aim down sight accuracy. And so while I'm not exactly sure if this is a bug at this point, maybe this is what actually DICE intended, if you are having trouble with those situations where you do like to hip fire and then start to aim down sight, just tap fire real fast. It's going to correct it. It's going to make it so that you got that pinpoint accuracy again. And so personally, I don't think that this is really all that large of a problem. And maybe DICE think that this is a bug, and maybe in the future they will patch it. But as of right now, I don't want DICE pulling resources away from fixing all of the other more glaring issues And so if you are having this problem right now, just tap fire a little bit more. It's gonna solve the problem. But that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.